In this video we will discuss where wine gets these crazy flavors. The reason why we do this is not to get you to make your own wines. The reason is to gain an understanding of how you put grapes into a barrel, and when you drink the wine, the juice, the fermented juice, you get flavors of apple and tropical fruit and butter and vanilla. What kind of alchemy is this? How is this possible? Hi there, my name is Daniel Human and I have a passion for teaching people about wine and getting people to engage with and enjoy their wine more. My family has been part of the wine journey for much of their adult lives. They have carried cases of wine, manned wine tasting stalls, and have tasted a lot of wines with me. In the beginning it was quite funny. When they tasted a wine they would say it tastes like wine or it tastes like grapes. But then over time they started to identify smells and flavors that did not make sense, like melon or citrus. And the game was afoot. Pretty soon they were discussing the flavors and jointly building a vocabulary of terms to describe what they were experiencing. If you watched my video on the 5 wine tasting hacks, you would have seen that we visualize smells and that we have to train our brain to communicate what we see. I know that perhaps this does not make sense to you, but stick with us and we will walk this road of discovery together. Remember, if you subscribe to our channel, you get weekly videos on wine and how to enjoy wine more. Even though we may be far apart and you are looking at this on your mobile phone or laptop, there's no limitation to learning about wine right where you are. Well, there's one limitation. If you're watching this on your way to work, you perhaps want to practice when you are home after work. Other than working in the wine industry, you engaging with your wine at the office may be frowned upon. But let's start at the beginning. This may sound really stupid, but what is wine anyway? Even though wine is accepted to be an alcoholic beverage made by fermenting the juice of grapes, there are wines made from fermenting other fruits as well. It differs from beers, where beer is created by fermenting grains. It's important to note that you get table grapes, the large, succulent, tasty grapes that you eat, and you get wine grapes. Okay, you may say, so what if you ferment grapes? How do you get different wines? Well, there are many choices that a winemaker makes to produce an interesting wine. The type of grape that is used to make the wine, the way the grapes are fermented, the process of fermentation, the yeasts that is used. It is important to say that wine is both art and science. In the middle, they meet and become a craft. And being able to make these choices intelligently is what a great winemaker does. Let's put it this way. If you pop a cheese-flavored chip into your mouth, do you taste cheese? Was cheese used to flavor it? In most cases, no. You're tasting a chemical compound that tells your brain this is cheese. Also, the label helps you to taste cheese. I've seen many moments when people eat a chip for the first time and ask, what is this? As the prompting of the label was absent. Now this is the same with wine. Typically, you do not buy a bottle of wine that says white wine, expect to taste tropical fruit flavors. In fact, that kind of label will get most people not to buy the wine. But before we get there, if you like what you see and what you learn, please subscribe. Also, if you like the video or save the video, you will help others to find it easier, so that they could also learn more about wine and enjoying it. Also, if you have any comments, share them below and we can have a chat about them. And thank you for the people tweeting about these videos. I appreciate the contact. So in essence, we are talking chemistry. There are lots of compounds in wine that present aromas. They are called esters, pyrazines, terpenes, thiols, lactones, and other organic compounds. And right here, we need to debunk a myth about taste. Some people believe that they have a better sense of taste than others. Many would ascribe this to talent or even the structure of their tongue. The fact is, our tongues, even if they are forked, can only taste the basics: sweet, bitter, salt, and sour. Recently we added another great term to our taste vocabulary: umami. Using this sounds really cool and sophisticated. I love the umami flavor in this wine. Nope, you get no umami flavor in wine. Umami is a term that describes savory taste, like tuna sashimi, or as we would say, biltong. some people will call biltong jerky. So the tongue is actually quite stupid. It does have one or two other functions though. It senses heat and cold. Now this is also interesting. When spices or alcohol hits the tongue, the brain translates this to heat as well. As for acidity, it is actually the pain receptors of the tongue that fires off a message to the brain, danger. Remember, the sense of smell and the sense of taste is there to protect us. It smells that something is off or rotten. It smells that something is dangerous, sulfuric or poisonous. The complex flavors we experience is all in the nose, whether autonasal or retronasal, what we discussed in the previous video. The brain translates these smells to a sensation of taste. However, there are many more complex interactions that for now we're not going to get into. Suffice to say, the combination of smell and mouthfeel and the basic tastes present a picture to the brain that says buttery. This means that a beautiful Chardonnay will present apples and butter through a combination of the feeling of the wine in the mouth, the experience of acidity by the pain receptors, and the smell of a compound called diacetyl. If you love baking, you would sometimes use some butter essence in your dough. This is diacetyl. The only difference is that it was made in a test tube. So here are some new words to add to your vocabulary. Diacetyl says butter. Pyrazine says bell peppers or capsicum. Vanillin says vanilla. Vanilla says wood. See, you can already impress people with poncy words and phrases. What you will learn in time is to associate these flavors with the stylistic choices of the winemaker, as well as to start to identify the grapes used to make the wine. Wine is complex, which is why I love it. It is also why I've been married for almost 3 decades, because it's complicated. I love complex. And without you realizing it, so do you. Have you ever described your food as being bland? This is just another way of saying the complexity of the food is lacking. On this journey, we'll start to unpack a lot of the information, and whilst I love complex things, I also love to make them simple for you. What I decided to do in these videos is to introduce an erroneous statement into each video. In the following video, I will tell you what it was. And there are so many lovely wrong statements in the wine industry to choose from. My intent is not to confuse you. My intent is to get you to embrace facts and debunk fiction. Pretty soon we will be able to talk about how wine is made and how different choices will influence the wine result. And then it gets even more complex, as the wine in the bottle keeps on changing. As a white wine becomes golden orange with age, this is a 22-year-old Sauvignon Blanc, 22-year-old orange wine. And a red wine becomes a rich golden brown, the aromas and the flavors change too. And understanding these principles is what a trained sommelier has to master. Being able to identify the grapes used in a blend, ascribing unique geolocated characteristics to it, deciphering the climate it was grown in, and deducing the age of the wine is all within the grasp of mere mortals. It's important to say that taste and how you describe it is both personal and impersonal. Your vocabulary that you use is never wrong, but butter is butter. The impersonal characterizes and commonly shares data, whilst the personal adds further nuances. You will hear wine aficionados use terms like barn floor or mousy. For you, this may be different in expression, which is why saying compost heap or vermicomposter is more personal, as it relates to your experience and your vocabulary. One of these terms that I love to harp on is gooseberry. In wine notes, people would easily refer to this flavor. In South Africa, we have a fruit called a Cape gooseberry, and it's almost completely unlike a Northern Hemisphere gooseberry. The one is aromatic and perfumed, the other is tart and fresh. It's like comparing bananas and apples. So sometimes it's important to also consider what could be lost in translation. Talking about translation, it's also important to start linking the aromas. Once you've identified them to what it means in the wine, This is not easy, but it is possible, and luckily it will require a lot of practice. And in this game, practice is pure joy. Imagine having to go through a case or two just to understand a wine better. And what are these links that I'm referring to? Well, consider a Sauvignon Blanc. Delicious and fresh dry white wine. A warmer climate grape gives you pineapple, apricot, melon, and other tropical fruits. A colder climate gives you grassy and green notes like Granny Smith apples and asparagus. Also, fresh cut grass. A cooler climate makes Cabernet Sauvignon tighten up the berry fruit aromas and presents you with a cranberry and a currant note. Remember the jams and tasting standards I talked about in the previous video? This is a really handy way to hone your skills. A warmer climate Cabernet Sauvignon gives you strawberries and plump blackberries. Pretty soon we will be talking about blends such as the classic Bordeaux blends, where the Cabernet and Merlot is blended with a spot of Petit Verdot, and how you get so much more enjoyment from the blend. An important skill to learn when sniffing your wine is firstly what to expect and why, and then secondly what not to expect and why. There are many wine faults that give you hints as to where things went wrong. Most of them are caught early by the competent winemaker, but some of them slip through. Some are sold as cheap content that is blended in dreaded packages called dry red. But an experienced wine taster is not deceived. The human nose is a fascinating tool, and we have the ability through training to identify aromas, both good and bad, at very low levels. Even 2 drops in an Olympic-sized swimming pool can be detected by the nose, which is why you smell the wine in the restaurant. We will present an entire episode on wine faults and how to detect them, another on wine etiquette and how you master the restaurant table scene with confidence and elegance and with good manners. But that is later. For now, we are focused on where the aromas come from and what to expect and how to learn to do this better and better. A last note on tasting wines. A short pencil is better than a long memory. Use your mobile phone to make notes of a wine that you tasted. Give your impressions, even if they may prove to be wrong later. You will never learn if you don't record your mistakes and your victories today. You could even get a wine label scanning app like Vivino. I use it to record my experiences and to be able to refer back to them later. Also, by now I'm seeing how the 2014 and the 2015 expressed itself differently, which is really great. Every year, a wine from a vineyard and a winemaker is new. The season was new, the amount of rain was new, the amount of sun was new every single year, and that's bottled. It is like Ed Sheeran releasing a new song. It could be a great shower sing-along hit, or it could be just another song on a new album. But then, we all have our own favorites on the album, and that is the same with wine. You get to know what you love. It is personal and it is interesting.